Right, so after having driven the AS X-Maxx and hearing that Arrma, a car company that I'd never owned a car from, was bringing out a competitor that was supposed to kill the X-Maxx, which were the slogans we were hearing before this car came out, I decided, right, maybe I should buy my first Arrma car. It's going to be a competitor to the X-Maxx, which is probably my favourite RC car. And let's see what Arrma have got to offer that's going to destroy or dominate the X-Maxx. So, I hadn't seen or heard what was coming out. Well, I'd heard the slogans and the rumours and things like that it was going to be a big car that's going to compete with the X-Maxx, but I hadn't seen it or had any sort of sneak previews of it or anything like that. But I decided to sort of phone the model shop and say, look, you know, if they're bringing out a competitor to the X-Maxx, this might be the first time that I have to get an Arrma vehicle. So I took a day off work and I basically got the call to say that this had arrived a couple of months back and to come pick it up. So I went down there, basically bought this car, which is an amazingly good looking car. It reminds me, I mean, never mind X-Maxx killer, it reminds me of a big E-Revo. I think it's still classed as a monster truck, but to me, that does not look anything like a monster truck. It's a big truck, a big racing truck, a racing truggy, but it's definitely not a monster truck. So I was still very happy when I saw it. I've always loved the E-Revo, like I said earlier in the video. So I basically said, yeah, go on, I'll take it, and brought this beast home. As you've all probably seen, on the first run, the car did break. It looked very tough, everything looks amazing, and I say it did break, it didn't break. On the first run, even though we checked every other screw, we didn't realise there was a little tiny screw in the steering, which is really difficult to get to. It didn't look like a screw at the time. I thought it was just like bolted through or just a whole piece rather than having some mechanical connections inside. So basically a screw threaded and it sort of stopped the car running for a good month because there were no parts. We did do a temporary fix of our own and I did get it running again for a while, but then that gave up soon enough as well, and we decided just to wait for the official parts to come to get this car back up and running. Now, I haven't actually driven this car as much as my other cars, and that is because first of all, it's so big, so it's hard to take everywhere, because obviously the bigger you go, the more space you need and the difficulty. So I can go to the forest and rip it round, no problem, but we've all done that and we've seen it now. It's still where I go when I want to have fun with my cars, but it's not something I'm going to put on YouTube over and over again, obviously. So I've not really taken this car out that much because there's sort of limited areas you can take it to. A lot of the jumps that have been going off recently as well in the new areas are quite narrow. So I am going to take this one down there next time and try and maybe do a backflip and do some cool jumps and stuff. But I'm just hoping it's not too wide to go off the jumps. Most of the jumps we sort of find are made by BMX people, or not BMX, or mountain bikers, or, you know, and they're quite thin, you know, they're probably about that wide in total, and it's probably going to be quite hard to see if this thing will actually go off them well, or whether it'll be all over the place. The other thing that's put me off driving it a little bit, first of all, the availability of no parts, which, you know, I like to break things and repair them, and I like to have the ability to get the parts straight away and get the car back up and running. I don't really like not having any cars that aren't up and running. And the other thing is that I've been hearing, and obviously done a lot of research about it, is that the price of the spare parts for this car are just astronomical, is the word I would use. They're double the price pretty much of most X-Maxx parts. So maybe not double, but near enough double. You know, if an X-Maxx A-arm set is 16, 24 quid, whatever it may be, the ones for this will be 40 quid. So, you know, it's the same thing. The diff housing or a new diff on this thing, again, 50, 60 quid. On an X-Maxx, it's 24 quid. So I'm just a bit apprehensive. I've bought all these cars and I've spent a lot of money recently, and I basically don't want to break it. I'm enjoying racing it round, having fun with it myself, but for YouTube and doing all the crazy stuff with it that people want to see and jumps and everything else, I'm just a little bit apprehensive as to start breaking stuff on it, because the repair costs on this, you know, you're getting towards like the price of a normal car almost. So I find that a little bit shocking, because Arrma is meant to be the cheaper car or the cheaper manufacturer, the more value for money, as you hear about Arrma over the years. So I am a little bit shocked that this one has got such expensive parts, like, you know, anything, a suspension, a set of suspension things, you know, whatever it may be, they are just very expensive. I think the tires, again, more expensive. Everything is more expensive than on the Traxxas cars. So I'm quite happy to brake and drive and backflip and jump the Traxxas cars, because they're cheap and cheerful to repair unless you have a major accident. But whereas with this thing, you know, it's quite a lot to repair whether you break anything on it at all. So that for me is a big feature that puts me off jumping and ripping the car to destruction, and really, you know, giving it a good old bash, just because I know it might cost me 200 quid to fix the thing and get it back up and running. And when you've already spent £1,000 on a car, which is more than the Traxxas X-Maxx, you really want the parts to be sort of feasible rather than extortion. So anyway, that is my thoughts on the Kraton 8S. Apart from that, the car itself, tyres, you know, tyres are doing well. Everything else is doing well. When I'm driving it around, doing little jumps and stuff, it's an absolutely brilliant car. Apart from that first incident where a screw had threaded, which I don't blame it on the manufacturer, I don't blame it on Arrma, I don't blame it on, it's basically whoever put it together didn't put thread lock, or I don't know, you know, there was obviously just a little issue there, so I'm not really bothered about that at all. But yeah, so I mean, you know, it's a great car, and I will start to push it more and more. I have got back to work now instead of buying all these RC cars, so eventually I hope to have the money to be able to repair this thing and, you know, give it some serious beatings and see what it can do. There are obviously people on YouTube who are doing amazing things with the truck, but most of them are in America, where they've got massive amounts of room to go. And, you know, I'm basically speaking about Rick Duperbash, great guy, great video, really like his channel. And he does some crazy, amazing stuff with his cars, but he just has the best areas to go, which unfortunately we don't have access to here in Manchester. Maybe there are other places in the UK that do, but Manchester doesn't seem to have an abundance of quarries or massive areas where you can just go flying, you know, with like dirt floors where you can just rip it round and things like that. The forest and little clearings and things like that are the best sort of thing we get. So that does sort of hold you back from taking the car out a lot. Now, I will get onto environments in a minute, because there are a lot of questions that come in about these vehicles. And yes, there are differences and stuff, but technically, I believe it's the car you should buy, because people ask me, what car should I buy, this or that or this or that. I believe what car you should buy is basically nothing to do with the car itself. You know, well, there's a range of cars, so whatever's within your range, then choose out of them, but I'll explain what I mean in a minute. But yeah, that is the Kraton 8S, great car, can't wait to rip it, bit nervous about breaking it, could do with more power, that's the other thing I was going to say. This car, I've got it on burst level 7 or 5 or whatever the top one is on this car. But yeah, it could definitely do with a bit more power, and people, obviously, as you've seen, it's underpowered. When you do put the burst level up, it is quicker than an X-Maxx, so I don't really know why people go on about its underpoweredness so much when it is quicker than an X-Maxx. But I think what they mean is it's got the potential to have a lot more power in such a big chassis. So obviously people have been upgrading them and making them really shift. But for me, being 40 miles an hour, same speed as an X-Maxx, tiny bit quicker maybe, I'm quite happy with it really. Might one day change the spur gear. Apparently with the 2023 tooth, it does a lot more agile stuff in the air and is a lot more controllable, because it does feel a little bit sort of, not laggy, but a little bit sluggish to do things like in responsiveness. And it is a big heavy car, but it could do with a little bit more perkiness. That's the way I would explain it. Anyway, so that's the Kraton 8S. Apart from that, brilliant car. Let's move on. Oh, I also forgot to mention one good thing about the Kraton 8S is you can get rid of those stupid, well, not get rid of them, I still keep them and I still use them, but if you're just going for a light rip, you can put Velcro again down the sides, just like with the E-Revo, and that is a real cool feature. I think every truck should have a side plate where you can connect the car to like that, because it just makes fitting and taking off the body shells so much easier, more secure and quicker. Next we have the Arrma Notorious 6S. Now we bought these. Oh, does it want to move? That was nerve-wracking. Yeah, we bought these because we'd seen all the videos of the stunt trucks, and when I actually bought the AS Kraton without sort of knowing what it really was, I was hoping it would be, when they said X-Maxx killer and things like that, I was hoping it would be more of a truck like this, that was a stunt truck, you know, had loads of power, could wheelie like a maniac, and was just crazy basically. But unfortunately, the Kraton AS is much more reserved than that, and it's more of a driving car, if you ask me, more truck. So this was the car that we've wanted from Arrma before the Kraton AS. I've wanted this car really ever since I've seen it, but, well, not ever since I've seen it, ever since they upgraded the versions. And once they got to a version 4, they'd sort of fixed a lot of the things that I wasn't happy with, like the suspension and other things, and I was very happy then basically, and I thought, right, I need to get myself one of these Arrmas. I want an Arrma stunt truck for jumps. You see it all over the internet, flying, backflipping, double backflipping, doing all sorts of cool stuff, so I wanted to get involved and get one of them. So me and Cameron bought an Outcast 6S and this one, which you can see on the unboxing video and a few of our ripping videos, and basically this is a fantastic truck. Now, it is a direct competitor, I would say, with the Traxxas Max. Or people, because they're in the same similar sort of area and price, people sort of compare them a little bit, and basically it's like, do I buy one of these or do I buy one of these? You know, they're the general questions you get. But for me, they are quite different. I mean, the Max is less of a stunt truck, more of like a mini monster truck, whereas this is a stunt truck. It's better on bigger terrains than the Max, because the Max is a bit smaller and a bit thinner. This thing's got more clearance, and it sort of feels a bit lighter as well, with it just having that single plate rather than all the Traxxas chassis stuff. It seems to like bobble across the top of stuff rather than getting hit and taking a beating. So it is a really quite a cool car. The tyres, fantastic, much better than Traxxas tyres. This thing's had much more of a beating than our Max has, and the tyres are absolutely perfect, whereas the Maxes are starting to go a bit like the X-Maxes, which is all soft and useless. So this is a great car. It's also cheaper than the Max, which everyone knows. But the one thing I would say is I've never had an RC car, because you want to sort of jump and backflip this thing, which is what it sort of says on the tin and what it's made for. I haven't really, you sort of send it a bit further. It's hard to explain. With the Max trucks, with the size, we did do backflips and all that sort of stuff, and we've been doing them, and nothing, apart from the drive shafts, which again haven't cracked off, they've been sort of ripped off, and a one little arm, a steering rod, we haven't really had anything break. Now this car, it is 100 quid cheaper, so you could go, oh yeah, look, it's cheaper, it's got more clearance, it does everything a lot better, it can wheelie like a maniac, and you could argue that it's better than the Max, or better value than the Max, should I say. But it is actually the quickest car I've ever had to break things, and to break things that aren't exactly things you'd normally break. So an obvious thing, which is something you definitely would normally break, is the rear bumper. So the rear bumper straight away, let me just see if I can get the body shut off yet. Oh, needs a good clean, sorry about that. But it has been for that rip. If you've seen my latest video, this thing took a beating. I've mentioned it in my other video. This bit here basically completely snapped, both of them. Rear bumper came off. Had to buy RPM ones to fix that. So that's like 20 quid straight away. So that's nothing, but it takes it from 440 to 460. The Max is 560, so you're 100 quid down. So you're getting a bit closer. Then I've also had the front bumper break. So we've fitted an RPM front bumper with the Italian little bit in there, little front bumper from one of them to give it that, and it comes with like a new front plate, which is cool. Well, it's attached to the bumper, so that's again another 20 quid I think, or 15 quid. So again, you're now on 485, so you're getting closer to your 560. The other thing I've had break, which is something I wouldn't expect to break, which I personally found quite strange, because I don't think, apart from water, I've ever had a problem with one from a Traxxas car. But basically, the bearings. So you can see there, that's got like a yellow rubber seal around it. The car has pretty much had to have a full set of new bearings because 2 of them broke into complete pieces, which were in the drive shafts here. So obviously as this drive shaft, or this, you know, going to the wheel, is going up and down and taking a pounding, the bearing inside there, just from the movement of it doing this or whatever, was completely crushed and destroyed, and we heard like a nasty crunching noise, and the car just wouldn't move at all. And the bearing, there were balls everywhere. They'd all gone into the diff, where the diff is housed, the diff housing, and there was bits of metal everywhere. Had to get a really strong magnet and just go around everywhere and pick up all the little shards of fragmented metal, which I wasn't impressed with at all. For the sake of 20 quid, you can put some better bearings in the car and just put the price of the car up for 20 quid, because it really is quite a big job to go through the whole car and replace all the bearings, which for me is irritating. The other thing is they're about £30, so suddenly you're 485, you're now on 515. I also had exactly the same problem in one of the rear wheels, where a bearing was completely destroyed, and that's basically, I think that one happened first, and I could hear a little noise. I was like, oh, what's that? And then when this one happened at the front, it was so bad, the whole car was just like, no, I'm not going to move, which is fair enough. So apart from those things, the car has been fine. But, you know, it does quickly ramp up the price of the vehicle, and what they sell it for, it is a little bit like inferior in strength, even though it's cheaper. Even though it's cheaper and it seems better value for money, there are a couple of parts on there that either should have been toughened up or should have just been upgraded straight away for when they sell the vehicle. You'll notice now on the 4S, one of these, the same sort of car but with 4S, it's all plastic, and all these sort of shock towers and what they call, you know, spoiler holders and all that sort of stuff have really been beefed up, so you probably wouldn't break them, and that's really what they should have done on this one. But anyway, it is a version 4, they've upgraded loads of things. The suspension and things like that I find amazing. I do find this suspension is better than Traxxas suspension. It really comes back up nicely, smoothly, softly, and it really does take the landings from the jumps a lot better. So that's that really. So that is the Notorious 6S. Apart from those little problems, absolutely great car. Now I've upgraded these parts, it really is working well. I think the next thing I'm going to get is an M2C chassis, so I don't have to worry about that bending. But apart from that, it's been backflipping, it's nearly done a double backflip. It's, you know, it's ripped it over rocks, it's taken impact. I mean, if you see the underneath of it, you know, it has taken a real beating. But apart from like a little fin down there that looks a little bit crooked because it hit a rock the other day, it seems to be holding up well. On the other hand, I do love the design of this truck. It looks a lot more grown up than the Traxxas cars. They sort of look like alien trucks, like things you wouldn't necessarily see on the road, or like Dakar rally things, or they've just got a funny design to the top of the trucks. Whereas this is a much more sort of recognisable, old school vintage truck with a big V8 engine in there or whatever it may have. But yeah, I love the look of it. I think it is my favourite car for looks, and now that I've sort of upgraded to the RPM parts and the bearings, the car is doing really well, like I say. So absolutely loving this car, and if you want to sort of upgrade and do a bit of work on the cars, this is a real good car to sort of start on. And the price of the parts on this one is quite reasonable. It's not really like the Kraton 8S, which is crazy. This one is really quite reasonable. So, you know, cheap to run, cheap to maintain, fun when you go out there, lots and lots of power. Only downside, does have 2 batteries, or you can put a big 6S battery in there, I suppose, but you know, if you've been driving all the other cars, you'd never buy a 6S battery for anything. Traxxas ones take 2 batteries, the X-Maxx takes 2 batteries. So I don't really have any 6S packs just sat around that I can shove in this thing. So yeah, so I do put 2 3S's in there, and I've got a few sets of them, so I just take them out in a bag when I go out at this thing, and you can go for an hour with 2 or, well, 3 sets of batteries, let's say. So yeah, once you've done the required upgrades, absolutely brilliant car. So now moving on to my last car, This video is probably going to be about an hour, but anyway, I'll try and just choose the best clips. We'll put this one back. Right, so moving on to my final car out of my collection. This is the TRX-4 Traxxas Bronco, which, again, the TRX-4 is a car I've wanted for a long time, ever since they brought out the Defender. It's taken me a couple of years to sort of, well, not a couple of years, well, since they brought the TRX-4 out, a good few years, till I've been able to sort of have the money to get one. I always sort of prioritise the bashing cars over these crawlers. But recently, since I've had quite a lot of problems with the Max, the X-Maxx, the Kraton was out of action, you know, we've had a lot of problems basically with the other cars. Not big problems though, as you've heard in this video, but just things that I haven't been able to get parts for, or, you know, I haven't wanted to go doing massive air because there's no parts for the Kraton 8S and the parts are extortionate. So I haven't really been able to sort of go out and do what I wanted to do with the big cars recently. We've also had storms for 2 or 3 weeks, so that hasn't helped. But I was also looking for a new area, and thank God, as you'll see in the last Notorious video, I've found a great area now, which I hope can put all the cars through their paces, and which will make for some great jumps, great bashing, hard landings, all sorts of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to going there with the other cars once they're all back up and running to perfection. But while I was sort of waiting for all that, I thought, right, you know, the light's getting a bit better here in England. Oh, that's that one. Right, I better be quick. The light's getting a bit better here in England. The kids wanted to start coming out, and they're seeing all these cool cars, and they're like, come on, Dad, we want to go out, let's go out. So I've been taking them out with the bashing cars, but they're so big and fast and dangerous. Even on 50% mode, if it hits one of my little kids' legs or something, I'd probably break their leg. So I wanted something in the meantime that I could take out with them, have a bit of fun. And I'd also seen like these new like engine sound noise things, and just generally some cool stuff coming out for the TRX-4. So I just thought, right, it's time I get a TRX-4, so I did. I got the Bronco version because even though I wanted the Land Rover for many years, once I was researching the car, I realised that the wheel arches on this car were sort of attached to the chassis. So you can see one just there. Whereas on the Range or the Land Rover, they're sort of attached to the body shell, and people do say it's a little bit top heavy. So this is the car that I went for in the end. The other reason is, obviously, if you're going to put a sound kit in there, a V8 or a diesel, you're going to go for the V8 every time. And that's about that, really. Yeah, I mean, I've just heard that people say that this car is slightly more modern, it's slightly better. With the weight being nearer the floor, it's slightly better. And it's also got sort of the slot in the front where you can, you know, where you can put a spare battery, apparently. I put a toolkit in there just so I've got a toolkit when I'm out, and it also is the heaviest thing that fits in that gap that I've got. So that was quite cool, quite like that, and it means I don't have to carry my tools around with me all the time. This thing can just carry its own tools. And yeah, that is the TRX-4 Bronco. Loving the truck, having some great fun with it. The other sort of draw to this one is you've got locking diffs, locking front diffs, locking no diffs. You've got speed mode where it goes pretty quick. You've got the headlights and the traditional Traxxas lights where the brake lights work and the headlights work and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, there was many reasons for wanting the TRX-4 in particular. Mainly the drive and being able to lock the diffs up and do all this kind of stuff. I know the other cars come with that as standard, but when you're walking between environments, it is nice to be able to sort of put it in speed mode, head over there, lock the diffs up, off you go, unlock the diffs, put it in speed mode. You know, there's a sort of variety of different drive modes for different situations. And as I sort of drive the car more, I'm learning what these are good for, when it's good to lock the diffs, when it's not good to lock the diffs, and loads of other cool stuff about this truck. So I'm really, really, really enjoying this truck. I must say, this car for me is one of the only cars that might get a 10 out of 10. It's not quite as good as crawling as the SCX-10, and that's the old XCS-10 I'm talking about. But for enjoyment level and, you know, having that cool sound box in there, obviously you've got to spend a lot. It's an expensive car. So, you know, there are things going against it. But for all-round enjoyment, this car has given me a 10 out of 10. I mean, I probably wouldn't say it is a 10 out of 10. It's probably, with the price, I'm not really that knowledgeable about crawlers. I've only had 2. The fact that the SCX-10 does sort of out-crawl it a bit, you could say it gets an 8 out of 10. that would probably be my real life analogy. Also the price, a little bit more expensive, quite a lot more expensive actually. I think, you know, it's again like a hundred and something pounds more expensive than an SCX10. So yeah, so it is expensive. Obviously you're getting sort of Traxxas quality. It feels a lot more sturdy than an SCX10. They feel sort of light and bouncy, whereas this thing feels planted and solid. So that's that really. So for me personally though, this car is a 10 out of 10. I just love the look of it. I love the colours. I love the shape. I love the aggressiveness. I love the Bronco body shell. Even though living in England, I've never really, I think I've seen one of these in real life once. I know they're big, massive trucks, dead high, you know, and they look pretty beefy on the road. But I just love this truck. It really is fun to go out with and be flicking the little levers and having the engine noise and just generally exploring anywhere you want. So that is the TRX-4. I've not had anything break. I've not had a single problem with it, to be honest. It's done everything I've asked of it. And now it's telling me that it needs a clean. So I'm going to go and clean all my RC cars because some of them are a bit dirty, as I've noticed in this video. Right, so that's it guys. I just wanted to do a quick video because I'm stuck in the house and the weather outside is awful. And I just wanted to sort of show my collection and why I got these cars and, you know, why we had so many Traxxas cars for years and then suddenly we've started buying Arrma cars. We're still buying Traxxas cars as well and Arrma cars, but how I like the different cars, what's better, what I find better. The last thing I wanted to say is because I get a lot of people saying to me, oh, should I buy this car or should I buy that car? And which is better out of this and which is better out of that? So the one thing I wanted to say, even on my videos, I get people saying, oh, this isn't a great comparison. But really, there are certain cars in certain brackets. So you've got your three, well, let's say, what should we say, £400 to £500 cars or £400 to £550 cars, where you've got your Notorious and your Max. You've got your £900 plus cars, which is your X-Maxx and your Kraton 8S. And then you've got your crawlers, which are anywhere from 300 to 500. And you've got all these different kind of brackets where cars fit into. And if you've got a certain amount of money, that's what they're going to fit into, that certain amount of money. And there are only certain cars within those brackets. So what I will say, a lot of people say to me, you know, which is a better car, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. For me personally, it's not about the vehicle really at all. Now, obviously there's other cars that you like and you like the look of things. I like the look of the Notorious 6S over the Max, but they do have different applications. And whatever car you're going to buy, it's really about where you have got to go to be able to bash these cars. What areas are available to you to take the cars? You know, there's no point buying a Kraton 8S if you just go into a small car park, you know, where it's never going to hit full speed, or, you know, you can only do a few turns or whatever, or you're not going to take it to any jumps, or it's not a racetrack or anything like that. You know, for me personally, if you're going to get a big car like that, you need to be taking it to places like we do, like the forests or big open areas, or just big expansive areas with tough terrain. And there's no point buying a Max if you're going to go to a forest and big areas like that with tough terrain, because the Max, as you can see in one of our recent videos, after 10 minutes it was broken and the X-Maxx carried on for nearly an hour. So you can't say to yourself, oh, which is the best car because it's the best car, and which car's not going to break, and which car's super tough that nothing can damage it, or which car's the fastest and does the best speed, and which car can do the best drifting or jumping, or, you know, all these things are irrelevant really. It's about which car will do the best drifting and jumping in the area that I go racing, or the areas that I've got access to, or, you know, if you don't have a hillside or a quarry, or there's no real point going crawling unless you're going to go out into the wilderness. So, you know, if you're a young kid or whatever and your dad's not going to take you out at the weekends, then I personally would probably get something like a Max. If you're just going to drive it outside your house, you know, do a few little jumps, build a ramp, have a bit of fun with your car, with your mates, get a Max or get a Carnage or something small like that. You're going to have a great time. It's going to be able to do a lot of cool stuff in the area that you've got to play in, and it will be a great car. You can upgrade any car to make it pretty much as durable as you want and to make it go as fast as you want. So, you know, if I'm just driving around in my back garden, the Carnage could be a better car than the Max. It's smaller, more nimble, It doesn't need to clear massive rocks, etc, etc. And it's the same for all the other cars. It's basically the same for every other car. If you go somewhere, walking your dog or wherever you may go, and it's, you know, like there are roots sticking out the floor, there are rocks sticking out the floor, and there's massive like ridges for you to jump off and things like that, then I personally would say don't get a Max, or maybe even don't get a Notorious, because when the floor has got lots of stuff on it, any little twigs or rocks that you hit with a Notorious or a Max can knock it off course quite easily. It makes it difficult to line up the jumps. Obviously going over rough terrain is going to damage these cars. They've got much lower sort of, you know, clearance and things like that. So if you're going somewhere like that where the terrain is proper nasty, then I would get an X-Maxx. You know, it's simple as that, really. Basically, that is my philosophy for all my RC cars. Where do I go and what car do I need to go there? That's why one day I'll be driving a Max, the next day I'll be driving a Notorious, the next day I'll be driving the X-Maxx and the Kraton and whatever else. And, you know, if I'm going to a specific location, there's a car that's right for that location. So if you've got a BMX track right next to your house, grab yourself a Max, grab yourself a Notorious, grab yourself an X-Maxx, grab yourself a Kraton. You know, grab anything you want really if you've got a massive BMX track outside the back. But if you've only got limited space, grab something a bit smaller. If you go somewhere where it's super rough, grab something that's going to take the punishment, or you can upgrade easily to take the punishment. So that is my thoughts on my collection and basically how you want to choose a car. They're all great cars, they're all fantastic. I think they're amazing. They're amazing little pieces of kit to be able to go that fast. Dead small little things, you know, they're going super fast, 60 miles an hour, crazy speeds, to be able to jump, backflip, land, take the beatings, go through puddles, rivers, whatever you want. There's a car out there for you, and the price point obviously is important to what you can afford, but just remember, where am I going to take this car and what car would suit that environment? So that is my personal thoughts on the whole RC hobby and the cars we've got available to us and the cars we've chosen to buy. And that's it, guys. Yeah, so sorry that the video is probably going on for like an hour. I'm going to cut this down as much as I can. I have sort of maybe repeated myself quite a bit because I'm just going off the cuff. I don't have any notes or anything like that. But yeah, so I hope you liked the video. I hope it was interesting to listen to rather than me just going blah, 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 blah. And yeah, we'll see you all again soon in the next video. Please like and subscribe. And one day I might be able to afford to repair the Kraton 8S. And we'll look forward to that day. And we'll take it off some crazy jumps and backflip it and do whatever it takes to show how cool that car can be and is. And yeah, we'll look forward to it. But yeah, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. And take it easy and get out there and do some RC.